In JavaScript, data is represented using name and value pairs. To organize your data, you can use an array or object to group a set of related values. In arrays and objects, the name is also known as a key. So we already know that a variable has just one key. That's the variable name, and one value. For instance, if I create a variable called colors and make it equal to a value, I can then go ahead and call the name of my variable, and it will let me know what the value is. Variable names are separated from their value by the equal sign. That's the assignment operator, and the values are always displayed inside of the single or double quotes. When we want to retrieve the variable name, we simply use its name. This is going to retrieve the value of the variable. When a variable has been declared but it has not yet been assigned a value, you will get the undefined value. If you don't use the var keyword, the variable is declared in global scope. You should always use the var keyword. Arrays differ from variables in that they can store multiple pieces of information. Each piece of information is separated by a comma. The order of the values is important because the items in an array are assigned a number, which is called an index. Values in an array are always put in square brackets and separated by commas. There are several different ways that you can create arrays. Let's look at a couple of different ways that we can create arrays. Arrays can be created in three ways. The most verbose approach looks like this. You create a variable and assign it a new array. Then what you'll have to do is you'll have to pass on the name of your array, use the square brackets, and pass on the index number that you want the array value to go in, and then inside of single quotes pass on the value for your array. And you would continue to create values in this manner. A more concise way of creating arrays is to use the new array constructor. Let's look at what that looks like. I'm just going to comment this out. To use the new array constructor, you set the array up in the same way, but then inside of the parentheses, you'll pass on the values, and they are separated by commas. So this would look something like this. The final method of creating an array is the literal array approach. This is by far the most useful way of creating an array. It's also the shortest, and it's the one that you'll probably use most often. You create the name of the variable, and then you make it equal to, and all you have to do to indicate that it's an array is to make your square brackets, and then you simply pass on the values. And just like they were in the last example, you'll put the values inside of the double or single quotes and separate them by commas. And as I mentioned, they just live inside of the square brackets like so. So all three of these approaches are going to create an array object called colors, and it's going to contain a multitude of string values. Arrays can store all other data types, numbers, booleans, even other arrays. So when you're creating an array, you can store multiple pieces of information. Each piece of information is separated by a comma. The order of the values is important because items in an array are assigned a number, which we also call an index. You can think of each item in the array as another key-value pair. The key is the index number, and the values are shown in the comma-separated list. The index numbers always start counting with 0. So in this array here, orange is the 0 index, yellow is 1, blue is 2. To retrieve an array, we use its index number. So if I wanted to retrieve yellow, I would simply write colors, and then in the square brackets, I would pass on the index number of 1, which would give me yellow. If we save this page and look at it in our browser, you can see that when I type the name of the array followed by the index number, it'll go ahead and give me the value of that number. Generally speaking, arrays are the only times when the key would be a number. So when you're thinking of arrays, just remember that the key is the index number and the values are the things that are shown by the comma separated list. Each array also has a property called length, which holds the number of items in an array. If we go into our developer tools, we can go ahead and find out what that is. I'll create a new variable called numColors. Then I'm going to specify that numColors is going to be equal to the length property of the colors array. When I hit my return, you can see that I get back 3, and that's because I have 3 items in my array. We can augment our array by adding or subtracting data to or from it. If we want to add data to the array object, you can do this in a number of ways. Which method you choose largely depends on your program's requirements. Let me show you one way in which we can do this. If you want to add an item onto the end of the array, we do that using the push method. And here's how this works. I'm going to put the name of my array, followed by push, and then I'll pass on a new value. Now you can see when I hit return, I'm getting back 4 as the number of items in my array. If we want to see the items that are in the array, I can use the document write method and just specify that I want to write colors. You can see when I do that, up in my browser I get orange, yellow, blue, and now green. If we use the push method again and add another color, now you can see that I have 5 numbers in my array. If we use document write again, you can see it's now augmented my code by adding orange, yellow, blue, green, and teal. It's just going to add this onto the page since I haven't cleared any of the data out. I'm going to refresh my page. Let me show you how we can add items to the beginning of the array. You saw in the last example with the push method, the items got added on to the end of the array. Sometimes you'll want the items to be added on to the beginning. You can easily do this by using the unshift method. Here's what my array currently looks like. Let me just drop the next line down, because that will make it easier for us to see what's happening here. So I'm just going to write a BR tag. So now if I was to write the colors again, you can see they appear on a new line. We'll add the BR in first. Alright, to add items on to the beginning of the array, as I mentioned, we're going to use unshift. This is going to look like this. I put the name of the array, followed by unshift, and then I just pass on the new value. Like so. You can see that my array length is now increased by 1, and if we do a document write, you can see that now I have teal at the beginning of the array as opposed to adding it on to the end like push does. Let's add one more item to our array, and I'll add it to the end by using push. You can see that the new color is now added on to the end. So in this case I have 5 items in my array. If you want to remove items from the array, you can use the pop method. Let me show you what that looks like. So all I have to do is write the name of the array followed by .pop, open and close parentheses. You can see that it's spit out green, and if we do a document write, you can see that now green has been removed from the end of my array. So push adds something to the end of the array, pop is going to remove something from the end of the array. We already saw how unshift is going to add something to the beginning of the array. If you want to remove something from the beginning of the array, you use shift. It got back teal, and if we go ahead and do a document write, you can see that now teal no longer exists in my list of colors.